When we set the meter to AC, because sound is AC, the V with the squiggly line, we have our RTA. We can hook up to these outputs and we can see what's going on. We're also going to need the test speaker once we get this done. Well, we'll talk about that when we get to this, one step at a time. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. When doing this test, it's best to have a signal that is fixed. For this, we're gonna play a pink noise over the stereo. This will give us a nice flat response output. Pink noise just sounds like this, but to a meter, it's great. Start with our digital multimeter first, playing our pink noise, turn the volume down. And as you can see, our meter is going down and our meter is going up. That's a good thing. That means that whatever this channel is connected to is variable voltage. Look at our RTA, and this is what we got coming out of here. Turn it back down. As we can see, the sound level goes down and the sound level goes up. Now, this isn't the greatest output ever out of a radio. This is actually EQ'd very badly. So we know what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to fix this. Even though it's an input into the amplifier, apparently there is some form of equalization being done in the radio, and it's giving us this nasty curve here. Test the next set, it's giving us the same thing. Same nasty curve. We'll test the next set, same, and then finally the last set, and we're getting the same. So there's 4 outputs. On this harness, there just so happens to be an extra set of wires. We'll test those, and they don't give us anything. We know that these guys here are definitely our signal. Now what we have to do is figure out which one is front, rear, left, right. And to do that, we're gonna go ahead and go back to the radio, and we're gonna balance over here to the driver's front. We'll bounce to the passenger front, and we'll work our way through it, and that'll tell us what set of wires is which. Faded the radio to driver's front. First one we plugged into is giving us sound. Let's try the next 3 just to make sure. I got no sound, I got no sound, I got no sound. Telling us that the first 2 wires on this plug are the drivers. I don't know it's positive or negative yet, but we know that the first 2 are drivers. That is a green and a gray. Let's write that down. Go to driver's rear, test again. We have sound on that one. No sound, no sound. Actually, that looks more gray. The first one should be green and white. That'll be green and gray. Move to the passenger rear speaker. We'll test the next 2. All right, we don't get anything out of that. But the last set we do. A purple, white, and a blue. So this should be our last set. And sure enough it is. That is going to be a purple, yellow. Now we know what all the colors are for our 4 corners of the car. What we want to do now is do some polarity testing. For that, we're going to go ahead and put the radio back in the center. We need our test speaker, our polarity tester, play the speaker pop app on our phone into the stereo. This is going to give us a pop, pop, pop. Plug our test speaker into the front. We're going to get a popping sound out of it. And we're getting a green, which means it's correct. Green is positive and the white is negative. Test all the other ones. So that's green again. Passenger door. So that's the purple through the rear. The white is positive. Just to make sure that it's not doing something silly, switch these 2. Now we should be getting a red. And of course we're getting a red. Now we know we have variable voltage. We have positive and negatives figured out. This car has no backup sensors. This car has no ANC microphones. That's what Ford calls it, ANC, automatic noise canceling. Could also be, it sucks, whatever it is. You can test for that by looking on the headliner. There's little tiny round microphones positioned on the headliner. There's 3. If you unplug them, cancel the issue. The one thing this does have is CarPlay though, which means it's going to talk. Now when this does CarPlay, it talks out of the front 3 speakers, meaning the driver, the center, and the passenger. All 3 of them. Doesn't matter if it's this talk, they all talk. We want to make sure that it's not passing into this some other way. So to do that, we have our test speaker still here. Plug it into the front speaker. What's the weather like today? She's talking out of the speaker, so she's coming over this. And the other thing you'd want to test for is backup sensors. If there's backup sensors, figure out where it's coming from before you disconnect the amplifier. So we checked all that. We walked around the car and made sure it didn't have any of that stuff. Figure out what speaker it's coming out of. Sometimes backup sensors just come out of the rear speakers. Sometimes they come out of the front speakers. Test that stuff. Figure out where it's coming from so that you can then test that to make sure you're going to be amplifying those signals again. Because if you're not, it doesn't matter how cool we just got here. If those signals signals aren't coming through the factory amplifier, you may have to find another way to retain those. At this point, we're doing really well. We know that the EQ curve sucks, so that's okay because we have the D series amplifier, which is going to allow us to fix that. We figured out all the other ins and outs of this harness. Now comes the tricky part, integrating into this harness. No one likes to cut harnesses. Okay, we don't like to cut harnesses. There's a lot of you guys out there that like to cut harnesses. Well, maybe not you guys, but there's a lot of guys out there that cut harnesses. These do look reminiscent of other harnesses. And for me, the one harness I'm most concerned with is the signal one, because these are tiny wires. I would hate to have to cut this off and try to solder into it. But it does look like another harness that we've seen before. It looks like a GM harness. I just so happen to have a GM harness right here. And once you know it, it plugs in. This is telling me is that we do have a harness for this. There's 10 other wires on here that I have no idea what they do. I don't know if we need to have them plugged in for like the radio to work in a gauge cluster. I don't know anything about that. My thought is that a T harness for this would probably be a good idea. I'm gonna see if we have some form of a T harness to work with this. The gray harness looks identical to the black harness, just gray. And it is. This is going to give us our front subwoofer, and our rear speakers are in this harness. The brown harness, however, there is nothing like the brown harness, which is okay. There's only 3 speakers on here, which is the top door, mid-range, the center, and the other side. They're a big enough wire to where we can actually cut these high enough up and be able to solder them back on, or just solder in some connections. We found 2 of the 3 harnesses. That's a good thing. We are going to have to cut 3 pairs of wires, but we'll make sure we do so that it's easy enough to put it back together.
First thing we're going to do is take the door panel out. We're going to grab our plastic pry tool and carefully on the handle we're going to pry it out. It's only one plug, so we disconnect it, and behind that it's a 10mm. Under the panel right here it's 2 7mm. We switch it to the 10mm. Behind this handle it's another 10mm. You grab your angle pick tool, just pry that one out. Grab your plastic pry tool again and try to go around the door panel carefully. We have 2 plugs and the handle that we need to unclip. Now our panel is free. This car we have 6.5, the 3-inch. We're gonna roll the window up. We can roadkill all the back. We have all the back piece with roadkill and everything. Install the fast rings. The first piece is gonna be the circle. You see right here we have a bar. We wanna cut it. The fast ring can go a little bit up, and then we wanna trim it because the window actually is gonna hit the foam, so we have to trim the foam twice. Trim the back piece of the fast ring. Install it, have the perfect center for the speaker. For this car we're gonna use the brackets BKFS B152 from Best Kits, of course. And this one actually it's really nice, fits perfect. You might have to take these little brackets out, depends of what kind of speaker you use. For this one we're gonna break it out. In my bracket, I make a new hole just to run my speaker wire to the outside. We already put some foam in the back, foam in the front. Before I put the speaker and run my wire, I like to trim the front of the roadkill just to make that shape. the Roadkill is done, we're gonna install the second piece of the fast ring. And also we're gonna install foam in the back of the 3.5. For the 3.5, we go and put some ferrule, heat shrink, install this. This door is done. We're gonna move to the back deck to start Roadkill and put the speakers on.